What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. So, you know, the incident that occurred at the Oscars between Will Smith and Chris Rock continues to rage on. People making memes about it. People, are intrigued by it. You have some people who are solidly behind Chris Rock. Seems like the majority of people are solidly behind Chris Rock. There are those who, if not behind Will Smith, defend Will Smith because they can understand what triggered him, you know. But no matter how you feel about the situation, I don't think there's any doubt that that was a real event, you know. Um, Chris Rock and Will Smith, from what I've read, are not particularly close. This isn't the first time that Chris Rock has made jokes publicly about Will Smith and Jada Pinkett, um, especially about Jada Pinkett. And when you take that into account, plus other recent events, and I think Will's emotions got the better of him, and he did something that is a no-no. Even though I understand why he did it, yeah, he was wrong in what he did, but I understand why he did it. But still, from a historical standpoint, this is what pops. This is what pops in my mind as a comparison. Now, this, on the other hand, was staged. All right, this was staged masterfully, even though at the time people thought it was real. And that was an incident that occurred on the David Letterman show. I think it was early 1983. It was before Andy Kaufman got sick. I think it was early 83, maybe late 82, between the late Andy Kaufman, who was a very popular comedian in this country from the mid 70s until his death in 84, and Jerry the King Lawler, who was a very popular regional wrestler in the South, especially I think Tennessee. I think is where he's from. Uh, that's for back when wrestling was more territorial, before Vince McMahon uh, made it national in 84, 85. But anyway, at that time, Andy Kaufman was a star of this sitcom called Taxi. And I think Taxi had just ended. He hated being on that sitcom. And at the time, I think he was into wrestling. He's always been a fan of wrestling. He loved the pretend world of wrestling that uh, oftentimes blurs the lines of reality and fantasy. People couldn't tell whether what was real, what was fake. That was golden. That was tailored to a guy like Andy Kaufman. So he professed himself to be, I think it was the intergender world champion, right? So he would go around fighting only women, all right? He would go around fighting only women, and naturally, because generally men are stronger than women, not every situation, but generally speaking, women are stronger than, men are physically stronger than women. He took advantage of that, and he became a heel, and he acted like he was really doing something, And if, interestingly enough, a couple of women came close to beating him because he's not a particularly big guy, but it's just that a man's strength is just significantly more on average than a woman's strength. So Jerry Lawler, who's actually Andy Kaufman's friend, they were good friends, but on air they appeared to despise each other. And Jerry Lawler would say all these types of things about him. He's not a man, you know. He's a Hollywood, you know. I don't want to use some of the terminology that might have been used back then. We're in a different era, but more or less, he didn't have any respect for him as a man, right? So I believe they fought each other, and I think in the match, Lawler won, but Kaufman supposedly suffered a neck injury, which might have led to a disqualification or something like that. I forgot. Um, it's been a while since I read about this, but people suspect even within the kayfabe world that it was like a fake injury. Like, of course it was fake, but even in that storyline that they concocted, it's supposed to be a fake injury that he's running around like he had. So they both appeared on the David Letterman show. You can find a clip on YouTube. And you talk about a slap. Jerry Lawler slapped the shit out of Andy Kaufman because Kaufman kept running off at the mouth, blah, 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 blah. But it was all strategized. It was all planned out. But it looked so real. And you could hear the crowd sort of give like a gasp when it happened. And even though David Letterman played it off well on camera, it was not scripted, and he was reportedly pissed that that had occurred because it wasn't going to be part of the program. So there was a lot of uh, controversy behind that. But that's what Andy Kaufman was about. Now, before people say, "Oh, well, see, I told you that's what Chris Rock and them was doing," but see, you gotta remember something though. Andy Kaufman was known for doing shit like this. Andy Kaufman was one of these comics, you want to call him that, who loved to pull the wool over people's eyes, whether he was another personality dressed up as somebody, as another person. What was it, Tony Clifton, or whether he had a tantrum on a television show which was planned, slapping, hitting people, getting into fights, tussles. All this shit was planned out. But the funny thing about it with him, the joke was not in on the audience, but it was to him funny between him and the other person. So Andy was kind of weird like that. Plus, this was the world of wrestling. You know what I'm saying? When you're attached to the world of wrestling, you expect shit like that. What happened on Sunday night was not some concocted situation. Um, Will Smith, I wouldn't say his career is over. I made a joke about that in a punchline as far as the title is concerned, but there's going to be a period of time where Will Smith is on a sabbatical. Okay, uh, but he'll be back. Um, there's going to be those who are always going to attach Will Smith to this and never let it go. They're never going to let it go. But at the end of the day, Will Smith will be back. Um, as far as Andy Kaufman is concerned, his reputation for fooling his audience, pulling a practical joke, began to precede him to the point where by late '83, around Thanksgiving, he began experiencing some sickness, some symptoms. He began having a cough. Andy Kaufman was a vegetarian who never smoked, but at that time, at the age of only 34, I believe, he was diagnosed with large cell lung cancer, and he was dying. He tried to uh, utilize all these alternative therapies to cure himself. It didn't work. Um, he would use the excuse that he was on an extreme diet when he was on television programs afterward, as to why he had lost so much weight. He had a little bit of a cough that he tried to hide, and ultimately, I think it was May 16th, 1984, at the age of 35, that he died. But did you know? Well, those of you who are familiar with him will know this, but there's still people today, and especially when he passed away, that did not accept that he had died. They thought that it was a hoax. They thought it was the ultimate prank, and that one of these days he would come out and uh, you know say surprise or some shit, or make some video saying, you guys thought I was dead and I'm not, you know, it's kind of interesting because I think Andy Kaufman would fit right in today's culture, you know, with as far as with the trolling and shit. Basically, that's what he was. He was the original. When I think about it, Andy Kaufman was the original troll. He would fit right in today's social media. But anyway, tell what you guys think.